Hello everybody, welcome back to my second part in the tutorial series of how to make a FPS game in Unity 3D. Today we're going to be covering creating this environment. We're going to import our gun model. We're going to texture our gun model. We are going to make our gun able to shoot. And we're going to make a crosshair so we know where to aim. And we're going to add some smooth weapon sway to make it look nice. So let's get into it. Okay, first thing you're going to need to do is go to the link in the description and it will bring you to this page or something similar, and you're going to download the file. We're going to open up Unity and create a new project. Okay, once your project is created, we want to create a folder, and this will be called My Assets. In this folder we will have a subfolder called 3D Models. And in this, we are going to import our glock. Now we are going to import the package that you downloaded. And this is PlayMaker, and this is going to help us make most of our game. So we'll go uncheck show as startup. Okay, we're going to install PlayMaker, and then click I made a backup. Go ahead. Import. We'll click I made a backup. Press OK. Alright, once that's done, you can exit out of it, and we need to import some packages. So right click in your project files. Okay, so you should have imported all of the standard Unity assets along with PlayMaker, and you have your assets. So now we are going to create our scene. So we are going to make a new cube, and this is going to be our floor. So we'll make this about 20 by 0.5 by 20. We're going to make a material for this so it's not super bright. So go to My Assets, make a new folder, and this will be called our environment, and make a new folder called materials. In this materials folder we'll create a new material called floor, and on this floor material we're going to change the albedo to navy, and we're going to have a mission and a grid. Type in grid emissive. Apply this to our floor, and we're going to turn up the tiling 15. We're going to make the metallic 0.2 and the smoothness around 0.6. That gives it a nice glow. And now we are going to put in a character that we can control. So we're going to go to standard assets, characters, first person, prefabs, and drag in a FPS controller. And we'll center him and put him up 1.2, I guess. That works. Okay, we're going to change some things on the character controller. First thing is we're going to go to the camera and change the field of view up to 80. Just having it as 60 is too small. Also change our clipping planes to near 0.03 so we can get stuff really close to the camera, like our gun model, without it clipping through the camera. We're going to go back to our FPS controller. We're going to change our walk speed to 4 and our run speed to 7.5, which is a lot more realistic than what it was at. We're going to change our jump speed to 5 and stick to ground force 15. We're going to change our X and Y sensitivity to about 1.5, and we're going to turn FOV kick off. What FOV kick does is when you start sprinting, it changes the FOV, it widens the field of view just to give it an effect, but we don't need that. We're going to change our bob curve, which is in head bob, and this is just, as you can see right now, when we walk it lowers our character to make it look like we're walking, but we don't want it that intense, so we're gonna lower it to around 0.04 or 0.4 I mean. And our step intervals to 3.5, and this will give us more steps. We're going to take off our sound, all the sound, because it is very annoying and we do not want that. And that is pretty much it. So now our first person character is pretty much set up. Okay, right now we're going to add a crosshair, so we'll go to Game Object, UI, Image, and this image you will see in the game view, and we're going to set the position to 0, 0, 0, and the width, we're going to change this to knob, and this will give us a little crosshair, so we're going to change the width and height to something smaller like 6. And now, as you can see, we have a crosshair. Okay, now we're going to put in our gun. So we'll go to our assets, My Assets, 3D Models, and put in our Glock. And as you can see, it is rotated the wrong way. This is because Cinema 4D's Z-axis is different from Unity's Z-axis, and so that kind of messed me up. But we can get around this by rotating it 180 degrees. And you can see it's very big, so we're going to shrink it down to a normal size and move it. It's still too big. We're going to move it into our view. And the best way to position your guns is to reference an image from like Call of Duty or something. So like this, you can see the difference between, you can see the back sights and the front sights are almost even, so we're going to lift it up. And also we're going to bring our gun in a little bit because the distance between here is smaller. So that looks pretty good. Alright, so we're going to attach our Glock to our first person character and make sure it's on first person character. So now you can see our gun is attached to our camera and we can look around. Alright, our gun is looking kind of plain, so let's put some materials on it. So we'll go into our assets, our 3D models, and you can see it's already made a materials folder, so we'll go into that, create a new material, and this will be called our gun body because this will be the main color of our gun. And in honor of the gun I based the image I based the gun off of, we're going to make it a tannish type gun. So let's just put it on the lower part of our gun right now so we can see what's going on, and we'll make it we'll actually get the select tool and we can select the color of the gun, and I'm going to darken it just a little bit. And for the metallic and the smoothness, I'm going to change the metallic to 0.6 and the smoothness to 0.3, and I'm going to put that on the slide as well and the bottom of the clip. And now we're going to make a new material for everything else. We'll call this black, gun black, I guess. and we're going to make the albedo a almost black color and apply it onto the trigger, the sights, the trigger guard, and also we're going to put this black material onto the magazine in there. So we'll have a black magazine and put the black material on the end of the gun. And to give our sights more of a glowing look, I guess, we will make a material for that called iron sights, and we're going to put this material on both of the small objects that we created so that we can put the material on. And we're going to actually make this, we're going to go up to our shader and we're going to make it toon basic. And what this does is it's going to stay a constant white no matter what. So if it, based on the, even if it's dark, if we rotate our sun so it's nighttime, you can see they still glow white. And that's super nice. Let's undo that. Okay. And our gun is pretty nice now. Looking pretty good. Okay, to make our gun shoot, we're going to add PlayMaker FSM in your components. We're going to name this FSM to shoot. Edit. Alright, in this state is going to check if we press our left mouse button, which is going to be our shoot button. So we're going to go to our get mouse button down, and if we get our left mouse button down, which is our shoot button, it's going to send the event shoot. And we're going to add that state. In this new state, and by the way, to add a new event from a transition, hold Control and drag out to create a new state. And this state will be called check if hit something. Check if hit, I guess. And the way this is going to work is we're going to raycast. We're going to raycast from our main camera, which is our first person character, in the direction 1 on our z-axis, which is forward, with a distance of 500, which will give us some distance. The hit event we're going to store as I hit something, or just I hit something. We're also going to store did hit as a bool, and this variable is going to be called I hit something. The store hit object is going to be called hit object, and the hit point we'll store that as hit point. Hit normal, hit normal, and hit distance as hit distance. And hit normal and hit distance we aren't going to be using today, but in a future tutorial we might. I'm going to turn debug on so you guys can see what exactly raycast does. And we want to add a wait, because if it does not hit anything, we don't want it to stay here. It will go back to the finish event we'll make a new event called nothing, because nothing happened. So it will go back to idle. We'll name this to idle. And now we need to create a new state. This state is going to check if it needs to add force to the rigid body. So we are going to use convert bool to float. Basically, what a bool is true or false. So we need to convert this bool to a float, which is a number. So true would be, for example, true would be 0 and false would be 1. I think it's the other way around, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so our bool variable is going to be I hit something, and our float variable, we're going to store that as a new variable called hit variable. And if it's false, it's going to be 0. If it's true, it's 1. Yeah. Oh, wait, okay. Now we are going to add a float compare, because if the float hit variable, which is this right here, basically if it is greater than our float 2, which is 0, we're going to make 0. If it's greater than that, it is going to did hit. And this did hit will be a transition to our next state, which will add force to the object. In this state, we're going to add an explosion force. And we're going to use the game object. We're going to specify a game object, and this is going to be our hit object. And our hit object is basically what the raycast hit. So on this hit object, we are going to create an explosion, and the explosion will make a rigid body object move. So whatever we hit is going to move. Our center is going to be our hit point, and we're going to make the force 200 and the radius 100. And we're going to leave the force mode on force, and that is all it's going to do. Once this is finished, so we'll add a finish transition, it'll just go back to shoot. Or idle, I mean. Okay, so this should be called add force question mark, because it needs to determine if it's going to add force or not. Basically, at our start state, if we get our mouse button down, if we press our left mouse button, it's going to go to shoot, and the shoot transition will go to the state check if it hit anything. Now this is going to gather information about what it hit, where it hit it, and if it did hit anything. And on this, it will determine if it did hit something. If it did hit something, it's going to add force to that object that it hit, and once it's done, it will go back to idle. If it didn't hit anything, it's going to do nothing, go back to idle. So, if we play our game with this open, you can see if I shoot something, if I'm not shooting anything, it's not going to do anything. And you can see the raycast coming out here. That is basically where I'm aiming at. So if it does hit something, it's going to figure out what it hit, and it's going to add force to wherever it was hit. In this case, it's not going to add force to our floor because it's not a rigid body. But what we can do is create targets. So we are going to create some targets to shoot. So we'll create a game object, 3D game object, cube. This cube, we're going to make a material for this cube so it's not bright white. So we'll go to our assets, environment, materials, and create a new material, and we'll call that target. Then we can make the albedo just pink. That's what I'm going to do. And add that to target. And on our metallic, we'll make that 0, and we'll make the smoothness 1, just to make it a little fancy. And on this cube, we also need to create a rigid body. And that will make it able to move around and stuff. and we'll rename this to target. Now as you can see, when we hit the cube, it moves the object in the point it was hit. It creates a force. So we're shooting our object now. And when we create smaller cubes with less weight, so for example I'll make this smaller, and since it's smaller we're going to change the mass to 0.05, and now on these small objects will go a lot further than this big one, so that's pretty neat. Alright, next thing we are going to do to make our gun movement a little more fancier than just it following the camera exactly where it is, we're going to create a null object on the FPS controller. So right click on FPS controller, create empty, and we can rename this to look at me. And you'll figure out why we're naming it that. We'll go to our Glock and we'll create a new FSM, and this FSM will be called weapon sway. In our weapon sway state, we will do a smooth look at, and it will be the look at me, and that is pretty much it. We'll turn the, but we do need to move this look at me thing in the Z axis. In this case we need to put it behind us because our gun is reversed. So if it was in front, our gun would basically turn around. We don't want it to do that. Since our gun Z axis is pointing this way, we have to put it behind us. So now when we play, you can see that we have some weapon sway. But we need to get this look at me, and it can't be part of the FPS controller. It needs to be part of the Glock. So we'll move it to a child of the Glock. Oh, not the Glock. Needs to be part of the first person character. Okay, once it's in the first person character. Okay, what's going on? Okay, so the problem is we had keep vertical on, and what keep vertical does is just keep it in its same vertical axis. So now you see we have smooth weapon movement. But we do not, well personally I don't want it that smooth, so I'm going to turn the speed up to 20. And I'm not sure what the finish tolerance does, but I'm just going to turn up to 5 because I can. And now it's not going to be as smooth. We do have one problem though, and it's that the look at me is not the same level as the gun. So let's go into our ISO view, and we are going to move this back here and up. It's important that you don't move the X axis in this case, because if you do, it will offset your gun position. But we want to make this around the same height as the barrel, and then we can move it back. We don't even need to move it back that far as it was. Okay, looks like that is too high. You just have to mess around with your heights and stuff to get it to stay around your beginning gun model, what your gun looks like at the beginning. So I'll continue to move mine down. So that's pretty good right there for me. it may be different for you. But now we got some nice weapon movement. And let's create some more targets. Alright, so now you can see that we are shooting cubes with imaginary bullets, and it affects them. It adds an explosion force to them. There's one last thing we can do, because right now we just have a floating weapon in the air. Let's make a little arm type thing. So we'll go to our assets 3D models, and we will create a folder, and we'll call this arms for our Glock. And we'll go into this arms folder, and we will create a 3D object, a cube, and we're going to resize this down and pull it out. Make it a little bit bigger. Skinnier. And not as long. And we'll create a material called skin. Put it on our arm, and we will turn the smoothness down to like 0.3 and the metallic to 0.3 also, or something like that. And change the color to like a skin tone color. And we're going to put this cube, we're going to rename it first, and rename it right arm, and we can make it, and we're going to make it part of the Glock. And this cube and this right arm, we're just going to make a prefab so we can use it later. Alright, so now we have a very, very cubish looking arm that is better than nothing, and it may seem like we're in Roblox, but so that's pretty much it for this tutorial. We got our gun imported in, and we got some weapon sway, we got a crosshair, and we can shoot stuff, and that's pretty awesome. Alright, I'll see you in the next tutorial when we do some more stuff. See ya.